I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Sierra Leone on behalf of the African states.
Mr. President, I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the African Group. We thank you for convening today's debate on Agenda Item 127 on the question of equitable representation on an increase in the membership of the Security Council and other matters related to the Security Council. We acknowledge your opening remarks and wish to reiterate our commitment to achieving progress on this very important issue. At the outset, let me extend sincere condolences to all member states for the loss of life due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It is our hope that this pandemic will be a thing of the past, as no country is safe until every country is safe from the virus. Let me also take this opportunity to once again congratulate you on behalf of the African Group on your election as President of the 75th session of the General Assembly in the Diamond Jubilee anniversary of our organization. We look forward to working with you and all the member states in achieving the widest possible consensus on the reform of the Security Council. We express our sincere congratulations to Her Excellency Ms. Alie Ahmed Saif Al Thani, Permanent Representative of the State of Qatar, and Her Excellencies Ms. Joanna Ronica, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Poland, on their appointment and reappointment as co-chairs of the intergovernmental negotiations, respectively. We would like to assure them of our support in building on the gains made thus far in the reform process. We would also like to thank the former co-chairs. Co-chair, Her Excellency Mrs. Lana Nosube, Permanent Representative of the United Arab Emirates, for her stewardship of the IGN process between the 72nd and 74th session. Mr. President, Africa remains convinced of the need for a comprehensive reform of the United Nations system, which will significantly contribute to upholding the principles, objectives, and ideals of the UN Charter for a fairer world based on universalism, equity, and regional balance. To this end, we remain true and faithful to the General Assembly Decision 62/557 and other relevant General Assembly decisions for a comprehensive reform of the Security Council on all 5 clusters, taking into account their interconnectedness. We therefore reject any piecemeal and selective approach which contradict and violate the spirit of a comprehensive reform. Mr. President, the Vice President of Sierra Leone, on behalf of the coordinator of the African Union Committee of 10 Heads of State and Government on Reform of the UN Security Council, His Excellency Julius Maada Bio, reiterated the concerns of Africa during the high-level general debate last September over the lack of representation in the permanent category and the underrepresentation in the non-permanent category of the Security Council. Let me re-echo the coordinator's statement, quote, as coordinator of the African Union Committee of 10 on the reform of the United Nations Security Council, I should underscore that the people of Africa are convinced, now more than ever before, that the present geopolitical realities and the current global health pandemic are compelling for a comprehensive reform of the Security Council to make way for the representation of Africa in the permanent category and address its underrepresentation in the non-permanent category of the Council. Quote, end of quote. Africa remains the only region without representation in the permanent category of the Security Council and also underrepresented in the non-permanent category. Africa's demand for 2 permanent seats with all the rights and prerogatives of current members, including the right of veto, and 2 additional non-permanent seats, is a matter of common justice and the right to have an equal say in decision-making on issues of international peace and security, in particular matters that affect the African region. It is time that we address this long-standing injustice and imbalance perpetuated in the present configuration of the Security Council without any further delay. Mr. President, the common African position as articulated in the Ezuwini Consensus and the 6th Declaration is well known to this Assembly. However, for purposes of clarity and precision, let me reiterate that Africa demands, quote, not less than 2 permanent seats with all the prerogatives and privileges of permanent membership, including right of veto, and 5 non-permanent seats. Even though Africa is opposed in principle to the veto, it is of the view that so long as it exists and as a matter of common justice, it should be made available to all permanent members of the Security Council, end of quote. Our call for the immediate redress of the African demand for an equitable representation of Africa in the UN Security Council continues to garner broad support from member states of the United Nations. In particular, the co-chairs of the intergovernmental negotiations recorded in their letter to the President of the 71st sessions, detailing their assessment of the session, that they, quote, had the growing support expressed to redress the historical injustice against Africa and to ensure better African representation in a reform council in line with the common African position, end of quote. This development further reinforces the credibility and viability of the common African position on the reform of the UN Security Council. It builds on the broad support that our position continues to garner from the United Nations membership and signifies that the common African position remains unchallenged in its claim to redress the historical injustice of not being represented in the permanent category and underrepresented in the non-permanent category of the Security Council. Mr. President, in view of the foregoing and the upcoming intergovernmental negotiations, let me, on behalf of the African Group, highlight the following. 1. The African Group requests a discussion during this session on the working methods of the Security Council, in particular how it impacts on the work of the UN, especially the inequity in the composition of the Council, as well as the disadvantaged situation of the non-permanent seats in terms of institutional knowledge and decision-making. 2. The African Group requests for a dedicated meeting during this session to discuss the status of the various IGN documents and what needs to be done going forward. This is critical to progress in the IGN in order to rationalize the various views and positions of member states. 3, we are concerned that the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted discussions in the 75th session. Therefore, we hope that member states will be able to make up for lost time during this session. We are hopeful that in-person meetings will continue despite the ongoing pandemic and that there will be no disruption of the upcoming session. Mr. President, in fulfillment of the forthright vision of our leaders at the 2005 World Summit, we reiterate that we will work with all member states in an open, transparent, inclusive, and membership-driven process with a view to achieving progress that will lead to the ultimate realization of making the Security Council more broadly representative, democratic, effective, and transparent in order to enhance the legitimacy of its decisions. We encourage you, Mr. President, as the guarantor of this process, to use your good offices to appeal to member states to own the process by actively participating in a constructive manner. At this juncture, the African Group would like to express profound appreciation and gratitude to member states and interest groups for clearly and unambiguously expressing support for the common African position as enshrined in the Eswini Consensus and the Self-Declaration. As we work to instill new life in the reform agenda this year, let me conclude by reiterating that Africa remains firmly united in our commitment to a comprehensive reform as stipulated by Decision 62/557 and other relevant General Assembly decisions. We are ready to work with member states in canvassing support for the common African position to correct the historical injustice done to Africa and achieving our collective quest for a Security Council that reflects the world as it is today. Thank you, merci, shukran, gracias, sheshe, spasiba.